Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on AERA's PROSIS Pro called Turning Yourself into a PROSIS Professional. I am Amanda Goyette. I'm an admin assistant here with AERA, and I will be helping moderate today's event along with my colleague, Rob Monroe.
Hey everyone, yeah, Rob Monroe here. I look after membership and technical development at AERA, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today, we're going to do some live screen stuff on PROSIS Pro. We're going to concentrate more on some of the advanced features. All right, so the whole idea of coming onto this webinar today was PROSIS Pro, and we'll dive into this. And we're going to go to live screen here in just a sec. For over 14,000 engines now that we have in PROSIS Pro, so we've really worked hard at getting this thing, as many engines as we can. How it works is we grab service manuals and we purchase them, and from there, once we get the service manual, we open it up and we basically download or put into PROSIS Pro all the information from the service manual. We do that, right from A to Z. So, Audi, Acura to Z-Tor tractor and everything in between. We've also worked really hard lately at getting engines that maybe you don't typically see in North America, only because what's happening now is a lot of shops are starting to see a lot of like right-hand drive stuff and a lot of international engines that are coming through. So we've got a lot of service manuals for a lot of the offshore engines, if you want to call it, that were coming through. We have a lot of members that speak Spanish in Latin America, and again, we've worked hard at getting those engines in there. So if there's an engine, never be afraid to ask. If there's an engine that you don't see in there that you're working on, and you're just thinking maybe it's maybe just not out there, or PROSIS Pro doesn't have it, that's where you would. And I'm going to show you how to use this here in a second. But that's where you would ask us and say, hey, you know what? I'm working on a particular engine I don't see in PROSIS Pro. Can you get me information on it? And we'll actually go out and buy that service manual if we can find it. And if it's there, we'll buy it and we'll get that into PROSIS Pro. So that's why you have membership, and that's why that's why we're just trying to make this program as good as we can and get as many engines in there as we can. So, all right, so let's go over to live screen here for a minute. And we talked about, like I say, this is more of an advanced PROSIS Pro. So for those of you that are maybe just learning the program, I know I'm going to cover some stuff today that you'll definitely take advantage of. But if you're looking for more of an introductory to PROSIS Pro, we have webinars out there on that already, and you'll find those on our YouTube channel. And Amanda's going to show you how to find that. Again, right at the end of our presentation today, she'll show you where our YouTube channel is and how to get there. But like I say, today we're going to focus maybe more on the advanced stuff and kind of go from there. So you'll notice too, for those of you using PROSIS Pro, we had a pretty big update here just before Christmas that we've added some stuff, and there's a few little screens and little tabs and this and that's in there that maybe you don't recognize. And again, if you need me to cover any of that stuff, or if you have questions on it, just let me know and I can help you out there. So the first one I want to show you, you probably noticed here this little blue tab here, this engine article tab. And so what we thought was sometimes the information that's in PROSIS, a spec, just isn't enough. Sometimes we need maybe more of a technical bulletin, and maybe a technical bulletin isn't enough because we can only write so long of a technical bulletin. So we thought, why not enter some of the articles that we've done in Engine Professional magazine into PROSIS Pro? Because a lot of those articles actually are very, very helpful for when it comes to rebuilding the engine. So there's two ways to take advantage of this engine article tab. You can just click it, and what will happen is it's going to start listing all of the articles that we've got into PROSIS Pro, and we're entering more every day. We're just trying to pick and choose which ones that are going to be really good that we could take advantage of. So right now we've got 143 that are in there, and you'll see that grows as it goes on. So we're adding more and more. But another way to take advantage of this engine article is, let's say we're going to do a particular engine lookup. So in this case, let's say we're going to work on a Ford, and let's say it's a newer 5.0, like in a F-150 or something. So let's go 5.0, and let's choose like a 2015, and let's search that. So PROSIS Pro, and again, a lot of you should be pretty used to this lookup already and how to do it. But let's say we're going to look up, like I mentioned, the F-150. So we click on it, it opens it up, and I picked a wrong year. So let me just go back again here just real quick. And there we go. That's what I'm looking for. So you'll see this also, the engine article, and it's going to be in red. And this one, when we've got it in the engine lookup, that means that article is actually going to have something to do with that engine that you're working on. So what you do is you click it and go over here to view it. So this Ford 5.0, we actually did an article a while back. One of our techs, Chuck Lynch, did it. And it talks about the liner and sleeve information on it, tricks to honing it if you can. This 5.0 you can't bore, so you can do a light hone, but this is what this article goes into. And that's kind of the idea of the engine article tabs that we've entered into PROSIS Pro, is so that you can take advantage of that. So that's one to really have a look at. That's just another addition compared to what you'd see for technical bulletins. So have a look at that. One of the probably most calls that we get on the tech line regarding PROSIS Pro is we'll get a call and they'll say, I can't find any information in there. I don't see it. I've entered the engine, but I would have thought that this particular engine would be in PROSIS Pro, but it's not. And what we find is that most members are entering too much information into the lookup. So we've added some wording here to kind of just as a little bit of a reminder. I know it seems weird, typically we're used to entering as much information as we can to narrow it down, but for PROSIS Pro, it actually works better if you enter the minimum information and kind of do that. Now, I'll tell you why is that, for example, when I'm looking up an engine, I would rather see lots of results. So let's do this, for example. Let's go like Volkswagen, and let's go 2.0, and let's not even put a year in. Let's just leave it at those two and see what happens. Okay, so PROSIS Pro is I know Volkswagen 2-liter is going to show a lot of results. So 153. Okay, so let's narrow that down a little bit and say 2015, and let's have a look. Okay, so now we're down to 66. I would much rather see in front of me everything. Like, I want to see all the results. I don't want it narrowing it down to the point where I've entered the model and the VIN and that kind of stuff, because sometimes you'll get a 0 result. And again, that's the kind of calls that we get. And I'll tell you why this doesn't necessarily work with model is that, keep in mind, PROSIS Pro is a program that's used around the world. So a Ford Ranger in South Africa might not be the same as a Ford Ranger here in North America, and it might be a completely different engine platform. So just get in the habit of using the make, the year, and the engine size, or if you're working on an industrial engine, the make and the engine code, really, and you'll be able to narrow your searches down and get everything you want and have it all in front of you there. So just a little reminder about that. All right, another little handy feature that I'll show you to take advantage of is what we call, it's the new favorite engines tab. And you can actually, PROSIS Pro will save the favorite engines for you, because maybe you're only working on 15 engines this month, and rather than go back in and constantly enter in the PROSIS Pro lookup information, you would rather just click on the favorite and quickly go to it. So I'm going to use an example. Let's go like Volvo, and maybe let's use like a B13A or something like that. There we go. And let's search that. PROSIS Pro will find it. There's 2 ways to do a favorite engine. You've probably noticed this little star right here. So even when you're in the lookup screen, you can hit the star. See how it turns yellow there? You'll click that. That'll make this a favorite. Or once you're inside the actual engine lookup, there's another star right there. So it's just a matter of clicking it. You'll see it went yellow. So now you've made a favorite engine out of this Volvo. And if you want to find your favorite engines, I'm just going to refresh this screen so that it knows that it's going to be saved. The engine spec tab, so this is the same one that you're going to click when you want to look up your previous engines. So a lot of you are probably doing this already, where you want to look up like the engines that you just had on the screen not that long ago. You'll see that's that tab at the top, the engine spec. But you'll notice this one right here, this My Favorite Engines. If you just click that, we should be able to spot this Volvo. There we go, right there. So we've added the Volvo. I have several. You can see here, I've got 14 saved already as favorite engines, but there's the Volvo right there. And you can quickly go to it, open it up, and you've saved that as a favorite engine. If you want to remove that, like maybe this particular engine's gone out the door and you don't need to really have it as a favorite, just click that star, refresh. You'll see if we go back to engine spec, And my favorites, that Volvo is now gone. So it's just that simple. That's what you can do for favorite engines and kind of do things that way. One thing I want to show you too, a couple little easy sort of shortcuts, if you want to call it. You've probably noticed when you go to look up an engine, you've seen some of this information over here on the right part of the screen. And so what it is the INTFR stands for interference. So that's going to tell you whether this particular engine is an interference engine or not. And we'll let you know with either a red dot, a yellow dot, or if it's a freewheeling engine that's not even a concern about pistons hitting valves, it'll be a green dot. So have a look for those. And that's really handy for, I'm sure we've all gotten the call. Maybe you're doing a job for a garage and they've got a vehicle on the hoist and they call you right away and want to know, you know what, timing belt broke. Is this an interference engine? Can you let me know before I even go any further, before I even put a compression tester to this thing? And you can go up on a PROSIS Pro and get to this far and you can see, well, you know what? Yep, it's a red circle, so that this particular one is interference. The other things to take advantage of, if you're looking for a shortcut without actually going inside the engine lookup, thumbtack is the technical bulletins, the wrench are procedures, and the camera is, those are the diagrams. You can direct link right to technical bulletins right from this screen. You don't need to open up the engine to get there. When they're blue like this, it means you can go right to them. So watch what happens if I go to diagrams and click this 11. It's immediately going to bring up those 11 diagrams within the Ford 6.0. So you can, again, it's just a little shortcut to kind of take advantage of without actually going inside the program and hitting diagrams. We're trying to save you maybe one or two less clicks there by doing that if it's just a diagram you want to look at. So take advantage of that. Those are over there for you to play with. So another thing I want to show you is another little. So let's go into this Volvo again. Again, we're always trying to find ways to help you, save time. So you probably have noticed these little boxes here with this update. You probably wonder what they're for. It's just easy way to navigate up and down the screen. So if you click rocker shaft, it takes you to the bottom of the screen. You'll notice this little arrow over here. It'll take you to the top of the screen. So again, those are just little tricks to help navigate and make it look better for you. Casting number searches. This one I find really, really handy. Let's just hit dashboard. Okay, so you'll notice there's a couple different casting searches that we've added. We've got more of an advanced one, and we've got our basically our introductory one, if you call it. But you want to check this out. This is super cool. And we use this on the tech line all the time because what happens is you get some components in, customer drops it off. Maybe it was the parts driver, but you have no idea what they dropped off. They don't have any of the work order information from the customer. They don't have anything yet. All they've got is just dropped you off just some greasy, dirty components, some cylinder heads, some rods, and a crank. But you'd kind of like to get a work order started on a thing. You'd kind of like to know what they are. So waiting for the call doesn't necessarily help things out. So what you can do, if you have no idea looking at them, if you don't recognize it, you can play around now with, again, this advanced search. So here's what you can do. Let's say you've got the heads up on the bench and you got a caliper in your hand. Well, you do recognize, for example, you notice that I see a Chevy emblem on there. So I know at least that these things are some sort of Chevy product. And I know that it's a cylinder head. And I'm going to quickly put my caliper on the valves real quick, just kind of get an outside of that valve head diameter and see what they are. On my first measurement, I'm measuring like 1/500 on that exhaust valve when I measured it. So now what PROSIS Pro will do is it starts narrowing the search down. It says, okay, well, you know what? We've got 135 Chevrolets in PROSIS Pro with a 1.500 exhaust valve head diameter. All right, well, I don't really want to search through 135. Can we go a little one step further? Well, you can now with this new update. So what you can do is I'm going to measure the intake valve. So again, we're going to go cylinder head, and we're going to go valve head diameter. And let's say now we measure 1.940, and we search that. So PROSIS Pro says, you know what? I've got in my database I've got cylinder heads with a 1.5 exhaust and a 1.940 intake, and I've got 40 results for you to look at. And of course, you can basically just, if you're like, you know what, this is far enough, I'm happy with the results, and this thing does look like a 4.3 liter, it's a V6, you could go right to the lookup from here and click on it. But let's say you want to narrow it down even further, and you can just keep going and going with this. So let's say with these heads, they also brought some rods in. So now you can click connecting rod. Let's say you kind of did a rough measurement of that big end bore diameter. It's 2.225, and you search it. Okay, PROSIS Pro says, you know what? I've got information in there. So now we're starting to get somewhere. Now we're down to 17 results. Well, that's only 2 pages to go through. That's not bad. But basically, you can kind of take this advanced search and narrow down by it doesn't, like, remember, we used to do it by casting number. Well, now we can do it by measurement, by size. And what's cool is we can do it by we can do it by connecting rod, crankshaft, cylinder head. So there's lots of options there to be able to try and narrow this stuff down. And basically, this is what we're doing on the tech line, to be honest. When you call us and you're like, yeah, I'm looking for minimum thickness on this particular head, and I give you that spec over the phone, and you're like, oh, that's not even close to what I've got. The first thing I'll ask for is a casting number, and they're like, no, the casting number is too dirty. I can't really. So then I'll say, you know what are you getting for a rough measurement on that cylinder head? Like, just give me an idea of what you're getting for a thickness. And this is exactly what we're doing. Is we're going on here, and I'm choosing cylinder head, and then I'm going over here, and I'm going to thickness, and I'm entering in the thickness that you gave us over the phone, and I'm searching that, and that's kind of how we're trying to narrow down. And sometimes we get this where the customer said it was a 2 liter when really it was a 2.5 or something like that, and that's basically how we play with this and kind of narrow it down. Now keep in mind, we can do the same thing with casting number. Let's say you've got a really good casting number that's kind of there. Well, click the casting search. Let's say it's a crankshaft that you're working on, and let's say the last 3 digits are 442. That just happens to show up real good. So you'll go ends with, you're going to go crankshaft, and then you're going to search it. And this is just another way to do a casting search for this kind of stuff that maybe is coming through the door. So you'll see here 54 results for different crankshafts. So of course 305, 350, this is a pretty common casting number that I chose, but you get the idea. You can see how you can narrow this down by casting number. So those are there to take advantage of. Pretty good way to, again, to try and figure out what it is you're working on, because sometimes customers don't give us always the right information. Or, for example, if we're talking small block Chevy, maybe this particular engine got swapped out. Maybe they put a 350 in where the 305 was, and things just don't look right from the information that they gave you. So you're going to do some component searches like this and try and find the information to help out. So take advantage of that one. Another thing I want to show you is, in case you don't know that these are here, if you go to your Shop Tools tab, we've actually put in a bunch of pre-populated worksheets for you to use. So you can do it one of 2 ways. So it's where your engine calculator is, and you've got worksheets. So this particular one is actually, if you're more of an on-screen person and would rather do it that way, if you click, once you've got worksheets open, if you click New Engine Build, well, now what you can do is you can actually go on here and fill this all out. So you can basically, it's the same thing as we call it a build sheet, but you can go ahead and fill this all out on screen. You can save it, and then what you can do is you can go ahead and print it. So it'll take you to the print screen, and you'll see here, you'll actually be able to print this out after you've entered all this information in that you've wanted on computer. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, I'm just going to remove the Chev before I forget for later. Maybe you want a pre-populated or one that's like a PDF sheet that you could automatically download. So that's what we mean by download worksheets, which is this one right here. So what this brings up is ones that you can print. So again, if we talked about that same engine build sheet that we had that you could use the computer to fill out or on screen to fill out. This is one that you can go ahead and print that would be blank, and then you can fill this out by pen and paper and kind of do it that way. So you can take advantage of that. So those are all there for you, and we've created a bunch of them. Sometimes um, folks like maybe only you're working on cylinder heads in your shop, you don't work on bottom end stuff at all. Well, then you can just again, this is very nice for when you're before the cylinder head comes apart. And we really encourage this. It's nice to get some of these measurements because I'm sure some of you have phoned us before looking for example like a valve stem height, and we say to you, you're like phoning in on a 2022 Chevy something, and we don't have that valve stem height, and you're like, oh, but I've already done the machine work. Well, sometimes service manuals don't give us valve stem height. So again, this is where it's nice when you're actually disassembling the head, make a few measurements beforehand, and it's definitely going to save the headache later on if, let's say, 8-year, let's say it's too new for us to have that information. So those are handy to have, these particular worksheets for you to work from for sure. Another little handy feature I want to show you to help narrow some of your searches down. We talked about, let's go back to this Volkswagen. It's a good example. And let's say you're working on the 2-liter. And let's say it's a 2015, and we search that. And I know every time I search a 2-liter Volkswagen, I'm nearly shocked at how many different engine codes of 2-liter Volkswagen you could possibly have in 2015. And that's pretty classic. Volkswagen has a ton of engine codes. Well, you're showing 66 results here. So you're like, well, like, how am I going to narrow this down? Which particular one have I got? Well, Volkswagen's kind of nice. A lot of times they'll give you, like on the data plate or in the information, it'll tell you what the engine code is, so you can narrow it down that way. But this little feature over here we've added, and it's a fuel drop down or a fuel tab. Well, now what you can do is choose, okay, well, is the head a gas or is it diesel, or is the engine gas or diesel? So now you can just click diesel, click search. Boom, we've narrowed it down to at least 27 just by changing to the fuel tab, by changing between diesel and gas. So that's an option. It will always default to the one we call fuel, so to both, but you can also narrow it down to gas and hit search. And again, 39 results. And I picked probably one of the most populated lookups for 2015 because I know the Volkswagen was a good example. But you can see here how you can, maybe your shop only works on only diesel. Maybe you don't have anything gas that comes in the shop. So when you're entering your PROSIS Pro information, you'll probably automatically just choose diesel for the engine lookup, just to be sure that it's only the diesel stuff that you're looking at. So you can take advantage of that and have a look at that. So
I did have a question come in asking what the yellow dot refers to for interference. We touched on the red and the green, but we skipped over the yellow. So I thought we'd just touch on that real quick.
Very good. Yep. So if you see yellow here, what that means is that we really don't know yet. We have no information yet that tells us whether it's freewheeling or interference, but we thought we'd throw yellow up there as a caution just because we don't know. So and this goes to our members, if you do know for sure whether it's interference or not and you see yellow, by all means, let us know so that we can, because again, sometimes service manuals don't let us know for sure. So that's why we put the yellow in there. Right now, a couple little things I want to show you to watch out for that we've entered some new information in, especially now with a lot of this coated cylinders. A lot of the newer engines, you're starting to see Alusil and Nicosil and different coatings on there. We get calls all the time where I've got this thing in the machine, I'm trying to bore it, and I've gone through 3 cutters, and this thing will not bore whatsoever. Can you tell me what the engine block's made out of? So in PROSIS Pro, you're going to notice, and I'm going to use an example here that I know of. So we'll go forward, and we're going to go back to this 5.0, and we're going to make it a Mustang. So if we go 5.0, and we pick like a 2018, and we search it, and this time we're going to choose the Mustang, because you can see here, in the comments too, we mentioned that it's got the PDWA cylinder bores on it. So once this is open, if we go to the cylinder block section, we've added a a line item here of cylinder bore material. So as we start to get more and more information as to what these blocks are made out of, we're going to add this to PROSIS Pro so that you're aware of it. And again, just to try and help you out, because some of these blocks can't be bored at all. This particular one, you can't, again, the material's too thin. So if you're, even if you see an oversized piston available, and we do get this call on the tech line where, well, I know it says that it's got the coated bores, but there's a 30 over piston available. It must be able to go, I must be able to take this block to 30. And that's not the case. Yes, they might have made pistons for it, but maybe those pistons were made because they assumed that you were going to sleeve it. So anyway, really keep that in mind. Look for that cylinder bore material on some of this new stuff, and you'll find that there in PROSIS Pro under that section. Another thing I want to show you that we get calls on that can be sometimes hard to find. We get calls on piston to rod orientation. So I'm going to look up a particular engine here. I'm going to use a Dodge Dakota with a 4.7 as an example. And let's do an 03. And we search that. I'm going to show you the different ways to find the rod orientation. So let's choose this particular Dakota. So a couple places to look if you're trying to figure out how to put those pistons on the rods. You can go to diagrams. And once you're there, sometimes the service manual will give us a diagram, which is super cool. That makes it really easy once we've got a diagram or an image. Some service manuals only give us the wording. They don't give us an image. And the place to look for that, if you don't see your rod orientation in diagrams, you can either go to cylinder block and scroll down to the piston section. We've got an area here that says piston to rod orientation. So in this case, they want the oil notch and rod toward front. Or we've also now got it in the connecting rod tab. So again, piston to rod orientation, oil notch and rod toward front. So if you don't see it in diagrams, again, look at either connecting rod or cylinder block and look down for piston to rod wording, because sometimes that's all we're given is just the wording on how to put those pistons and rods on. So have a look for that one. Another thing too that you probably I've noticed, especially with the newer engines, is that the timing diagrams aren't necessarily a diagram anymore. A lot of timing stuff now is actually a full-blown procedure that's multiple pages long. The days of the dot to dot are kind of going by the wayside, and now it's like a full-blown procedure that includes phasers and variable valve timing control, locking pins, and all this kind of stuff. So it can get kind of complicated. So what we've done is we've actually created a procedures tab, and I'll just show you what to kind of watch out for there and what to see. So I'm going to use like a newer Chevy Cruze as an example. So if we go a Chevy, and let's say in this case it's a 1.8 liter, and let's say it's a 2015, and we're going to search that. So PROSIS is going to find us every. Okay, so here's the Cruze. Here we are at the lookup. There's 5 technical bulletins, 1 procedure, that's what we're looking for, the wrench, and there's also a diagram, and I've also made it a favorite engine, so I kind of got the full meal deal here on this one. Let's open it up. Once it's open, kind of train your eyes to come over here to procedures and look to see if there's anything there, and in this particular case there is. And however many procedures we put in there, we'll have the number in there. So if we go to diagrams, and I'll use this as an example, and I'll show you why. There's way too many diagrams and wording for us to have put the timing information in diagrams. That's why we had to create a procedure for it. All you need to do is click it. You'll see that there's a PDF for it. Just hover your mouse over the PDF and click it, and it's going to open up. And you can see here it's a 9-page procedure. And this is what we're finding more and more of with the newer engines. Nothing's just simple anymore. There's a lot of information to pass along. So you can see here that that's where you'll find this timing procedure. And you can also, and just like, because I basically have my print screen open here, you could go over here and print it and hand it to your customer or hand it to your assembly technician or whatever, just so that they've got it. But at least now, train your eyes to look for the procedures, and you'll see things like timing diagram information in there. We put things like injector cup install procedures in there. Just anything that's way too long for us to put in a line item of process that you normally see or in just an image. So you have a look for that and you'll see that in there. All right, so you heard Amanda mention about on that poll, and she mentioned about on the poll that only 25% of you were entering custom information, and that's what I was kind of hoping to see today, so that I'm going to cover a little bit of how to do that right now. And maybe, for example, you're a performance shop, and the service manual from the OEM says that the oil clearances are supposed to be maybe 1.5 to 2.5. But as a performance shop, you're doing some high RPM, high horsepower stuff, and you want your assembly tech to know that maybe on this particular engine, it should be 3.5 thou. So let's pick an engine here for an example. And actually, let's go back to the Chevy Cruze. That makes it easy. So I'm going to go into my recently viewed. I'm going to click the Chevy Cruze, and I'm going to go over to crankshaft, and we can see here that oil clearances were 7/10 to 2 thou and 8/10 on the rods, and on the mains, it's a 2 to 2.4. So you can see here, I went in and I created a custom spec on this one, and it's in blue. And that's how you'll know that it's a custom spec. So really, all you do is you go over here to this add custom information, and you can do this on any one of the engines that's in there and on any one of the components you're working on. So if we click add custom info, you can see now what it's done is it's opened up these boxes over here. And if we go to oil clearance on the rods, and again, we can make up whatever we want, but let's say we're going to go 2.5 to 0.003.5, and that's going to be our custom information, and we save that and go OK. There it is in blue. We can add this custom information to any one of these line items. So maybe you've got custom rod journal diameters that you're going with, but you kind of get where I'm going with this is that you can do this on anything and do add custom info. So maybe on the block, maybe the pistons that you're using, you need a lot more piston to rod clearance, and you can enter that in simply by going right here. So let's say you're going to go 4 thou, and you're going to save that and go OK. And there you go. There's the 4 thou. So and this only goes to your computer. Don't worry. It's not like the custom information that you're entering in is going to across the board to all of PROSIS users. It's only yours. It's only for your login that it's saved for. So we don't see it at all. So you can do anything you want there. If you want to remove that, you just got to go add custom info again, scroll down, and just simply remove the 4 thou, save it, go OK, and there you go. It's gone. So that's how you do that. How you'll know that you've got an engine that's got custom information in it is that when you go to look up that engine, and I'll go to recently viewed here again, that's why it's yellow. So you can see here, anything with not any custom information in is gray, but custom information is highlighted in yellow. So not only is there custom information for this Chevy Cruze in here, this is also one of my favorite engines because I've got the yellow star. So that's kind of how those two features work. You can also create new engines if you want. So if you go into the engine spec tab, and I know we get some of this with some of our motorcycle shops that are using PROSIS Pro, because they're seeing stuff that maybe we haven't, out of all 14,000 that we have, well, maybe they're like working on some really oddball, weird motorcycle of some sort, let's say, for example. Well, right here under the engine spec tab, you see here it says create new engine. So you click it, and you can basically start entering in the information. So vehicle type, well, you'll go motorcycle, it's gas. You can start entering in all this information. When you get to make, you'll see that there's a red star there. That means you have to choose a make out of all the information. If you don't see it in all of PROSIS Pro, like in all our different makes right here, it means you have to create your own, and it'll let you do that. So let's say in this case, it's a Beta, which is like an Italian motorcycle. If you save that, now You can go in and enter all your specs for it. So basically, you're basically creating a process record, just like you look up any of the engines that we've entered in for you, only you're creating your own. And you can put all your own engine information in there. So it'll be saved in there for you, and you can enter in your specs. You can do all of that just like you would normally see in PROSIS. So that's how you enter in actually adding a custom engine. You have the ability to be able to add also things like parts, castings, and images. And I know we're kind of just dragging into almost an hour here. I'll only be a few more minutes. I'll just quickly show you this kind of stuff, and then we'll let you guys get on with your day. I do want to show you this. So let's go back to this Chevy Cruze. And let's go over here to this Parts and Supplier tab. Okay. So if you can see two things. One is it's highlighted yellow. So we have already, you might have been using this already a little bit. I show this in our introductory process, but there are direct links to suppliers' catalogs right from PROSIS Pro. So for example, Elgin has parts for the Chevy Cruze, and you literally, if I click this right here, it's going to take you over to Elgin's catalog, and you can just basically leave PROSIS and go right to Elgin and start looking at parts for it. You can also create your own custom parts information. I find this handy for creating engine kits within records of PROSIS. So for example, maybe you've got parts people at the counter, they have a few spare minutes on their hand, and your tech that's doing assembly, maybe your parts counter person's away that day, and that tech now needs to go and order parts for the engine that they're working on. Well, rather than them go through and look up the catalog and figure it all out, maybe that parts person has already done this for you and entered in a whole bunch of custom part information. So here's how it works. You basically go part number. So let's go like 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say the vendor is Hastings. Description is a piston ring set. Say the size, let's say, it's like 350, and the quantity of 1, and we save that. And we go, okay. You can see here now that you've actually created a custom parts lookup within Pro. So now you can, within this particular Chevy Cruze, and I shouldn't have named it 350, obviously that's just what kind of came to my head, but within this Chevy Cruze, we now have the Hastings ring number that we created. You can do this for the bearings, the gaskets, and literally build yourself a complete engine kit within that lookup for quick, easy, maybe this is an engine that you do lots of, and it's nice to have the timing chain information in there so you can quickly look it up and order those parts. So that's how that works. If you need to edit the lookup, that's what the pencil's for. And if you need to delete it or trash it, there's the garbage can, and we just click it, and now that is gone. So that makes it go away. I also want to show you, so for this particular Chevy Cruze, for example, you can see here we've got casting numbers. But let's say we want to create our own. Let's say, and I'm going to go to a different lookup here real quick so that we can give you an idea of what we want to do. Let's go to this Honda. Okay, and let's go to casting numbers. And we can see here that we've entered a bunch of casting numbers. What's becoming really handy is that sometimes we're trying to interchange cylinder heads, or we'll take calls where we get questions about, well, I've got casting number RAA-4. Will the PTL-2, will it also work in this particular case? And PROSIS, that's limited information that we don't necessarily know the answer to. So what we encourage you to do, again, is create your own custom specs by taking pictures of the heads that you're going to do. So here's an example. Let's say in this particular Honda, we know that you've got a head in front of you, and it's RBB-2 is the casting number, and we know that it's like a cylinder head. PROSIS now can let you upload an image, so you can put lots of images in here to this casting number for easy reference. So if, let's say, I browse my computer, and I did save this earlier before I got on here. So if we go, Honda K24 and open that. And we save it. And we go, okay. Well, we just created a new casting number. We've got the casting number, we've got the head, and we also have an image. So if we click on it, that's really handy. Now we can see maybe, again, if you're a shop that's doing lots of exchange stuff, you can put the images in there so that folks can see that, yeah, well, this one has a hole here where it shouldn't, or vice versa, and that kind of stuff. So you can create your own casting numbers, your own cylinder head images, all that with that image. So that's kind of a cool feature. You can also do the same in diagrams. So let's say within this Honda, you don't see a particular image that you wanted to have in here. Maybe there's a balance shaft or something. So again, you can go ahead and edit this yourself where it says upload images. So go select, in this case, let's say it's something to do with timing. You're going to upload an image and go to your, maybe I always save everything to my desktop for future reference. So if we go here, we have a look and we go pick this particular image and open it. And then I'm going to name it balance shaft timing. And we upload and we save it. Right here I had screenshotted this earlier, but I took this out of the service manual. It's basically how to balance the balance shaft, or how to time the balance shaft. And you're able to upload that to your diagram section of your computer. So that's another advanced feature that you can take advantage of. And how you know that it's one that you've added, that's not one that we've added, is, of course, you'll see here where you have the ability to delete it. Of course, you can't delete the ones that we put in there. Those are pre-populated, but you can add the ones that you put from your computer. So, and it's really simple. If you want to make it go away, just hit the trash can, hit OK, and it's gone. All right, two more things I want to show you. You're probably using this already, but if you're not, I'm going to show you how to do it. Within Shop Tools, you have a compression ratio calculator. Very handy feature. I used to use this lots when I was building strokers for the fact that if we're trying to mock up a compression ratio before we buy pistons, for example, because we wanted to know what piston to order. So in the calculator, let's say you're wanting to build a 383 Chevy as an example. So we know we're boring the block to 30/4-inch bore. So we'll enter 4.030 in as a bore. We're going to 3.750 because that's the stroke that we're going to use on the crank. It's an 8-cylinder. I've CC'd the heads we want to use, and they're 72. I'm looking in the catalog right now, and I see that the first selection I'm looking at maybe has a piston that's got a dish, and it's a 5 cc dish. You can see here, PROSIS does a pop-up for you. It says enter the value for dish, or if it's a dome, you put a minus sign in front of that. So if you're dealing with a dome piston, just put a minus sign in front of that 5, and it'll calculate that way for you. Gasket thickness, in this case, I'm using a 40 thou gasket. Maybe I don't even know any of this other information other than deck height. I know that right now my piston is sitting down the hole about 25 thou, and you can see that PROSIS has told you if your piston is above, you just put that negative in front of it. So again, that's how it'll calculate. So let's just see what PROSIS the calculator finds for us based on the information we've added. So it's telling us based on this 5 cc piston, dish piston, I'm going to be 10.53 to 1. Well, my particular customer was really hoping for 11.5 to 1. That's kind of what they were hoping for. Well, I could maybe find a piston with a dome and get it that way, but maybe not available. What's nice about PROSIS Pro is you can figure out how much to machine off those cylinder heads to get you there. And that's what this slide rule is for. So let's say I want to take 25 thou off those heads. It automatically calculates that now we've basically, with all this information, we're up to 11.2. So I probably got to be almost 30 thou to be up to where or even more to get my 11.5 as an example. But that's how that slide rule, that's how that works. And again, you can just play with that and see how much you can take off the cylinder heads. So use that calculator. It's really handy for figuring out displacement, compression ratios, and that kind of stuff, and play with it that way. So that's one thing that's cool. All right, one last thing here, and then we'll let you guys get on with your day. You have the ability. We talked about customizing PROSIS and making it unique to your own. We showed you how to use custom data, how to enter custom engines. In a lot of cases, PROSIS Pro, you're printing stuff off from PROSIS Pro to hand to your customer. So maybe, for example, they're in the shop, they're picking up the cylinder heads that you've just finished, and now rather than get that call 30 minutes later or half or an hour after they get home about, oh, I forgot to ask you, but what's the head torque for those heads? Well, a lot of folks now are printing off the stuff to give to the customer right at the shop, maybe while they're paying the bill. You know, they're getting their credit card ready to go to pay you for doing those cylinder heads. And now you can actually hand them the torque spec information so they can put those heads on. You can make those torque spec or the information you're giving to them from PROSIS Pro look like it's coming from your shop. And you can do that this way. If you go to Shop Counter, and a lot of you might have done this when you went to set up PROSIS originally, when you first got it for the very first time. But if you haven't, go over here to Shop Counter Settings and click that. And now you can see where you can enter in your own information, your shop information, your own contact, city, state, all that kind of stuff. And you can do it that way. And I've got Karen's in here because she's our main contact for PROSIS. But you can also add your own company logo. So your company logo, you may have that a logo, and again, they can make it look like it's coming from your shop. So again, I saved another AERA logo on my desktop. So if we go down and I choose logo and I hit open and I hit upload and save, I just changed the logo. Basically what I'm saying here is, though, you can put your logo in there. It doesn't have to be ours. So again, when you get that printed form with all the torque specs on there, it's going to look like it's coming from your shop. So take advantage of that. Again, it's there for you to make use of, to make it customized. So that pretty much wraps it up, Amanda. That's pretty much what I had to talk about today as far as PROSIS Pro. I tried to cover some of the updates. I tried to cover some of the advanced stuff. And again, if you got any questions, let us know. Also on the tech line, we talk about, all the time, we do not mind helping you with PROSIS Pro stuff. So by all means, we're there to help you with anything we can and get you going with PROSIS Pro. But if you've got any questions, I'd be more than happy to help you out. And thank you for everybody for hanging on. I know we went a little over today with our time, but always like helping you out and teaching you to make a PROSIS professional. That's kind of what we're trying to do here. So how's it going, Amanda?
Good. Thanks, Rob. I did have one question come in, and they're asking if there's any way to export custom information when they enter it in PROSIS. They have manuals still for some of the older computer illiterate techs. Excuse me, I can't speak evidently, and would like to be able to export that info and print it rather than having to write it down separately for them.
So I wonder if they're meaning, and I can get the contact information for the person that's asking the question. I wonder if they're trying to export like a spreadsheet on that particular engine, or if they're trying to create like a PDF file of the information. Let's say a particular engine, if they're just trying to create like a PDF file of it, that PROSIS can do.
Yeah.
So for
I'd say with like your cruise where you entered that specific information, if there's a way to export that, just maybe show them how that's done.
Sure. Okay, so let's pick the cruise. So what I like to do is when we get to our print feature, so for example, on this cruise, I'm sure a lot of you are already doing this, and let's say you're wanting to know about the cylinder head and torque tune-up information, and that's what you want to have possibly export. What I do, when I go to the print, and we get to the print page, and we get to the print options, you'll see here, if I go print, Microsoft has, and there's several different ways to do this, but for example, I use Microsoft. So I'll use the Microsoft Print to PDF, and that'll create a PDF file of which I'll save to my desktop, and then I've got that for later. Or again, it's just a matter of which particular printer. I mean, you can print it off on paper and have it that way. But I think that's hopefully answers your question, is that would be a way to export that. When we hear the word export, I'm thinking of more of like sometimes on the admin side of PROSIS Pro, we'll export a file which kind of turns it into like an Excel spreadsheet kind of thing. And we do that more for our internal basis. But whoever's asking the question, if this didn't really help you, again, I'd be more than happy to reach out to you to kind of verify exactly what you're looking for. But that's more of how I can think of how you could create a file for that particular lookup.
Perfect. And I think that about wraps it up for questions. If there's any others out there, we will get back to you after the webinar. We want to be mindful of your time, so we don't want to keep you for too long. As Robin kind of mentioned earlier, we do post all our webinars out to YouTube. So if you go out to YouTube and you just search AERA Engine Builders or Engine Builders Association, you should see us pop up. Look for our little engine logo. And within there are different playlists. There's a PROSIS playlist, technical webinars, business webinars, or you can just look and see what the most recent webinar is. While you're out there, just make sure to hit that subscribe button so you are aware when we upload new content and you don't miss anything. With that being said, I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of your day. We know you're very busy. When you go to leave, a survey will pop up. Take a moment, let us know how we're doing. There is a spot in there if you have any additional questions to ask those as well. And if you need to get a hold of us here at AERA for any reason, you can reach the team at 815-526-7600. And you'll also see Rob and I have our email addresses there. You are more than welcome to email either of us. And if we can't answer your question, we'll find someone on the team that can. So thank you again. We hope you have a great rest of your day and stay tuned for what's coming next.